holding up. Reliance also adding a little bit of support for the markets today. But that's what's going on in terms of the market action. We'll come back to this. But kicking off with the top story is that there's big relief coming through for Zee Entertainment. The NCLAT has stayed the insolvency proceedings which were initiated against the company by IndusInd Bank. So my colleague Ashmit is here. He's been tracking the story closely and he brings us all of the details. Ashmit, for now, a relief coming through.
Indeed, for now, the relief is interim in nature. Let's keep in mind that on 22nd of February is when the NCLT had directed for initiation of insolvency proceedings against Zee as well as Citi. Now, what's important is that Punit Goenka moved the NCLT. In fact, the arguments were heard today. The arguments that had been put forth by Zee essentially rested on two grounds. Number one is that Zee argued before the NCLT that, look, as far as the corporate guarantor aspect is concerned, Zee is a corporate guarantor not for the entire debt amount that has been taken on by Citi, but in fact only to the limited extent of tranche payments that have to be made for interest repayment. And that is the first leg of the argument. The second leg of the argument is, and this Zee argued, is a violation of principles of natural justice, which basically leads on to say that Zee was not allowed a hearing before the NCLT had directed for insolvency proceedings, that arguments were not heard. There was not a fair hearing. Zee could not defend itself, could not make its submissions before the NCLT. And this second argument appears to have struck a chord with the Appellate Tribunal, the NCLT holding that at no point did Zee forfeit its right to argue, to make its submissions, and that is an aspect that is bearing on the mind of the Appellate Tribunal, even as it stays the NCLT order. So that is very clear. The NCLT order directing for insolvency proceedings against Zee has now been stayed by the Appellate Tribunal. Notice has been issued to IndusInd Bank. And thirdly, this case will come up for hearing on March 29th. Now, importantly, IndusInd Bank, there are two aspects here. IndusInd Bank had asked for some form of deposit against this loan amount. That prayer has been refused. The second aspect that we'll have to watch more closely is whether or not IndusInd Bank takes the legal remedy of appealing against the stay order before the apex court. If this fight travels there, again, all bets are off. It could be more pain in store for Zee, but that's, of course, for a later date, depending on whether or not IndusInd chooses to move the top court. But for now, certain relief coming in for Zee. That big concern on the insolvency proceedings being stayed by the Appellate Tribunal. Back to you.
All right, very well summarized, Ashmit, but a few dates to watch out for, as Ashmit highlighted. Whether there is appeal by IndusInd Bank, the next hearing is on 29th March, and I must also state that Zee as well as Sony is in the process of the merger approvals as well, and that next matter in NCLT is also slated on 9th of March. What happens to that needs to be seen. Zee, of course, the stock is perking up to 200 level, but if you really see a 1 week chart, 206 levels it dropped from when IndusInd's action was really explained and insolvency proceedings was highlighted in this particular case, which has been stayed. And a statement just coming in from Zee MD as well as CEO Punit Goenka, and I quote, "We respect the decision taken by the Honorable National Company Law Appellate Tribunal and remain committed towards protecting the interests of all the stakeholders, and our focus continues to be on the timely completion of the proposed merger," end quote. So that's the comment really coming in from Zee Entertainment. Big relief as of now.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Big relief for now, like you were pointing out.